Ever feel like you're just drowning in data? Emails, spreadsheets, social media feeds?
Yeah, it can definitely feel like you're hit by a wave of information overload.
Right. And as soon as you think you've got your breath, another one comes crashing down.
It's relentless.
Totally. But today we're diving into a topic that might help us ride those waves.
We're talking about informatics, how to make sense of all that data and actually use it to gain valuable insights.
That's exactly it. And you know me, I love a good analogy, and I found one that really resonated with me in this article by Professor William L. Weaver. Have you read it?
I have. He talks about a third epoch of measurement.
Yes. And it really got me thinking. He argues that it's not about just gathering more data.
Right, we've got tons of that already.
It's about making sense of the mountains of data we've already collected.
And that's where informatics comes in. It's like we've been using buckets to collect rainwater, but now we're talking about building these really complex irrigation systems.
Wow, yeah. That's a great way to put it. And what really stood out to me, what Professor Weaver calls interdependent variables. It's fascinating.
So traditionally, we tried to isolate everything, just focus on the exact variable we wanted to measure and disregard anything considered interference.
Oh, I see. So you mean like ignoring all the other stuff?
Yeah, but what Professor Weaver is saying is that maybe, just maybe, that interference is actually really important.
Interesting.
Those extra bits, the stuff we used to ignore, might actually hold the key to understanding the bigger picture.
Okay, I'm hooked. It's like those magic eye pictures. You can't just look at the picture. You have to kind of look through the chaos to see that hidden 3D image. At least that's how I see it.
Exactly. It's about seeing the forest and the trees.
I love that.
Recognizing that the individual data points don't exist in isolation. They're all part of this complex web of interactions.
Okay, that's making a lot more sense now. So instead of just drowning in data, we need to find ways to connect those dots and see the bigger picture, right?
Precisely.
And that's where informatics comes in. I mean, what does that even mean? I feel like it's one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot.
It's definitely a hot topic, but what we're really talking about here are systems and methods that allow us to extract useful knowledge from all that data.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? I mean, where do we even start?
Well, Professor Weaver breaks it down into levels.
Okay, I like it when things are organized.
It makes it easier to get your head around. He starts with the most basic level, the what is it level. Like, we have different types of data, right? Numbers, text, images.
Right.
And then there's the level of how the data is structured. How is it organized? Think about something like a laboratory information management system.
Oh, right, a LIMS. I love a good acronym.
They're everywhere. But anyway, the point is that we need to move beyond just managing data.
So what's the next step then?
We need systems that can actually analyze the data, connect those interdependent variables, and give us real, meaningful knowledge.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually get from managing data to, actually getting knowledge from it?
Well, Professor Weaver talks about variable integration techniques.
Variable integration techniques?
Yeah.
Sounds complicated.
It does sound a bit intimidating, right? But really, it's about finding ways to connect the dots between all those data points we were talking about.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at individual pieces of information, we can start to see the full picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like putting together a puzzle. Each piece on its own doesn't tell you much. But when you start connecting them, you start to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And the potential applications of this are huge. I mean, think about healthcare, for example. Instead of just looking at a patient's symptoms, what if doctors could take into account their genetic data, lifestyle choices, environmental factors?
Wow, it's like a holistic view of their health.
Precisely. And with that more complete picture, doctors could create these truly personalized treatment plans.
That's incredible. So we're not just talking about managing information anymore, but using it to make better decisions, solve complex problems, things we could never do before.
You got it. And that's why this shift that Professor Weaver talks about, the third epoch of measurement, is so important. It's about moving away from that reductionist approach we've relied on for so long and embracing the complexity of the world around us.
Okay, I see. So instead of trying to simplify everything, we're finally starting to accept that things are interconnected.
Exactly. And that by studying those connections, we can unlock these really amazing insights.
Professor Weaver mentioned some really interesting examples of how this is already happening in different fields, right?
Yes, he does. Like, for example, in bioinformatics.
Bioinformatics, what is that? Remind me.
It's basically using informatics to study biological data. So things like DNA sequences or protein structures.
Ah, okay.
And it's revolutionizing drug discovery because by understanding how different drugs interact with the body at a molecular level.
Oh, so that's how they come up with new medications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's medical informatics, which is using patient data to improve diagnoses and even predict potential health risks.
So it's like having a crystal ball for your health.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
And it gets even more interesting when we start looking beyond the world of science.
Oh, you mean like how businesses are using informatics?
Precisely, like when you get those recommendations for movies on a streaming service or
Mhm.
product recommendations when you're shopping online,
Yeah.
those are powered by algorithms that are analyzing massive amounts of data about your preferences and past behavior.
It's a little creepy how well they seem to know me sometimes.
Right. But it illustrates how informatics is being used in all aspects of our lives, from personalized recommendations to optimizing traffic flow in cities. It's really everywhere.
Wow, you're right. I never really thought about it like that before. It's like we're surrounded by these invisible systems that are constantly collecting and analyzing data about us, and all that information has the potential to be incredibly valuable. It's like we've been living in this world surrounded by all these puzzle pieces, but we haven't known how to put them together. And now informatics is giving us the tools to finally see that full picture.
And the exciting thing is we're just getting started. There's so much more to discover as these tools continue to evolve.
I know. It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it. Professor Weaver even suggests that this shift is so significant, it's going to change how we talk about data.
He really does. Remember those laboratory information management systems we were talking about? The LIMS?
Yeah, those acronyms.
Well, Professor Weaver thinks that one day LIMS might actually stand for Laboratory Informatics Management System.
Oh, wow. So instead of just managing information, it's about using informatics to really understand it.
Exactly. It's about extracting knowledge and discovering those hidden patterns
Hmm.
that can help us make real progress in so many different areas.
It really makes you realize just how much potential is hidden within all that data. It's not just about the amount of data, but the insights we can gain from it.
Absolutely. And those insights can lead to some truly incredible breakthroughs.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive today, here's what I'm thinking about. If informatics is all about connecting the dots, what dots am I missing in my own life?
It's a great question,
Hmm.
and one that we could all probably benefit from asking ourselves.
Totally. It's about shifting your perspective and being open to seeing those connections, even in the most unexpected places.
Because you never know what you might discover when you start looking at the world through the lens of informatics.
Well said. And on that note, that's it for our deep dive into the fascinating world of informatics. It's a field that's constantly evolving, full of exciting possibilities, and I have a feeling we'll be talking about it a lot more in the future.